Welcome to Las Vegas on the last stop on the road to Wilder Fury 2. We have just had the weigh-in. Tyson Fury coming in at 273 pounds. Deontay Wilder coming in at 231 pounds. I am joined by Steve Bunce and a special guest, Joe Cole. How are you, Joe?
I'm very well. How are you?
Very good, thanks, mate. You're a fight fan. You said you've been out here a few times before for big fights.
Yeah, I've been to watch Ricky twice here. Castillo, when he stopped him with a body shot in this arena, and I went to watch the Manny Pacquiao fight, which obviously ended badly for him, but it was a terrific event. I love the whole build-up. I love me fighting. Yeah, I listen to this man's podcast all the time. So yeah,
what
I love
it. Nice plug there.
What a plug!
How much did he pay you for that? How does this compare to those Hatton fights? Because obviously Hatton brought thousands and thousands and thousands of fans to these events. We had 7,000 people in here today. There were 1,500 people that didn't get in, and this is just a weigh-in. How does this compare?
I think it's very similar. Like, you know, like the punters, it's a lot of Brits. They're here, the songs. You know, I don't think anyone will match Ricky's them weeks leading up to his fights. Like, because I was just saying to my missus as well when we come out here, do you remember the band? He brought his own band, didn't he?
Umpa band. He brought the England band. And they went up and down in the lift just to generate noise. How bizarre is that? They'd worked out. That was the acoustic gold mine. Go up and down in the lifts. So you got this thud of the band all the time.
Yeah, yes. And this is similar. Tyson just needs his own band and he's there.
He's got a lot of them, though. It was overwhelming support for Tyson, especially in comparison to Deontay, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable when you think you're in his backyard. He's in America, his country, and it was pro Tyson, weren't it? I didn't hear any real support for him. It was all Brits, and like we travel and we follow our fighters. That's for sure.
I've got to tell you, Rob, Joe's absolutely right, that sort of atmosphere, it wasn't just atmosphere, and I talked to when I spoke to Tyson Fury after the weigh-in, there was a kind of love in the air. I don't want to get soppy and all emotional, because I've had long hours out here, as you know, but there was something like, there was genuine feeling. And when the Neil Diamond song came up, you were sitting here, and I know it was 7,500. It felt like there were 20,000 in here, Joe, as far as I'm concerned.
It did, and I think as well, Tyson, you know, with his work with the mental health campaign and, you know, what he's gone through, I think he's got that connection with the fans. He sensed that he's not just a fighter they support, he's a fighter that means a lot to a lot of people because of what he's gone through in his story. So he's an amazing man. He
was surprised by the amount of support he had here as well. We were in the changing room with him beforehand, and he was surprised that many people had turned up just for the weigh-in.
Yeah, so going back to it, Rob, when I was talking to him backstage after the weigh-in, it wasn't like shock in his face, but he was like, wow, yeah, I could really feel them. I could really sense them. And I've got to be honest with you, they set it up wrong here today. I mean, I hate to be the person that brings one or two things to attention, but they set this up all wrong. The stage should have been where we are now, and that way you could have had half of the end of the entire end. They could have had 15,000 in here. They could have pushed it. We could have had 15,000 watching this weigh-in.
Yeah. And then it's not like Las Vegas to not know how to nick a few quid.
I know. they made a mistake, yes.
Well, yeah, 1,500 lost tickets outside as well.
Yeah.
Just crawling through the casinos, wanting to come in. And it is mad, isn't it? Because this week, even at the grand arrivals, which isn't a thing that we're huge on back in the UK, we don't do the big Vegas-style grand arrivals. Even there, it was overwhelming support for him, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's overwhelming support for him. The reason why I don't think we warmed to, you and I are not great fans of it, and other members of the BT team are not great fans of it, is that I don't think it really knows what it is, because it's not the weigh-in, and it's not the press conference, it's this other thing. Well, it needs to be maybe somewhere different where more people can go, because as it is, there's 500 people checking in and checking out of the hotel, there's 300 people waiting for a taxi, and there's 500 people looking after the fighters. So it's a bit confusing for everybody. I think it needs to be made, in my opinion, into a bigger event. I like the concept of it, Joe. Idea on a Tuesday, you get to see the two fighters you've come out to see, and it's very informal. But I think, in my opinion, it could be a much bigger event.
What did you make of them not being allowed to do the face-off today? Because we got the face-off and a pushing and shoving at the press conference on Wednesday. But today they separated them with a sort of awkward-looking fence around the scales. What do you think of that?
Well, now, as you know, I'm not a pretty face. But I am a journalist.
Don't put yourself down,
I don't mind. I'm sitting here with you two marble. You know, you're marvels. I'm telling you, I spoke to Bob Bennett, who's the executive director of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and he told me in great detail why they were banned from having the face-to-face. And what Bob said, and he's an ex-Marine, he doesn't mince his words, Bob. He said that after watching the press conference the other day and then inquiring of both teams whether it was fake, whether it was just for show, once he was assured it wasn't fake and that both teams felt like it was real, he made the decision to keep them apart for the boxers' welfare. But what ends up happening is once you separate them, you make sometimes an even bigger spectacle of it. Do you remember a few years ago when David Hay and Derek Chisora was separated by that wire mesh? It was brilliant. The wire mesh, everywhere we went, the wire mesh showed up. It was incredible. And all it was, between the two of us, was a little bit of wire meshing from a building site. It wasn't a purpose-built metal cage.
Conor McGregor, who's no stranger to controversy and scraps here in Vegas, he actually tweeted out questioning the Vegas Commission, saying, why not let the men do it? Why get in between them and affect something that would organically create a spectacle? Do you think it should have kept going?
I agree with what Bunce said. I think, you know, it can add a little bit of spice to it, you know, because you know that suggests that it's genuine, the needle. I think, you know, the commission has probably looked at Tyson and he's a character, and so he probably thinks I can't afford to be highly strung, maybe, you know, lashing out, or Deontay, you know, is he going to be too highly strung? These guys have done a lot of press this week. So listen, it's a decision they made, and as long as they get close enough to start throwing punches.
no danger of that.
Yeah.
They have done a lot of press this week, haven't they, Bunce?
Yeah.
We've been at most of it. And do you think they're going to be drained from that? Because normally this is where all those emotions, they come together, they get face to face, and you get that kind of explosion of tension. But this time, they've done all this media, and now, is that maybe a bit of a damp squib for them?
Well, we need to be careful, because sometimes all of that media is us, and we've pursued them, and they've been willing, and they've accompanied us, and they've let us do our stuff. But let's go to the actual press conference itself. I don't know if you were here in time for that, Joe. It was 60 minutes long. There were 3 commercial breaks as it went out live. At the end of that, I'm not an expert, I'm not a radio expert on voices, but they sounded deflated, they sounded tired. And I think, as great as it's been having open access to them, and I really mean that, I think they might look at it going forward and do the same amount of hours, but maybe restructure it slightly. Because you know, they look great today, no problem at all. They were bouncing and jumping all over the place. But you know, you were there. You know, you and I were standing together at the press conference, Rob. They looked like I didn't want to be here. It was too tired. And in the end, they couldn't even raise a snarl at the end. They'd gone from fighting and pushing and shoving to in the end saying, yeah, okay, you know, at the end, and Deontay said something like, gave it all away. He said, you know what, when it's all over, we'll sit down and have a barbecue or something. We said, no, you don't have barbecues. No, that's not what we want. We want the third fight, you idiot. No barbecues.
The trilogy's in Tyson's garden.
Thank you, darling.
Let's talk about the weight. Both of them have put on over a stone. I believe Tyson's put on 18 pounds and Deontay Wilder 15 pounds. That is obviously huge for Wilder with the punch power, but also Tyson Fury sacrificing being lighter, and I guess the cliche is that you can't hit what you can't see, right? And he's moving around and Wilder can't hit him. Now he's going to go, by looking at the weight, toe-to-toe with him.
Well, if Wilder thinks by gaining, you know, whatever he's done, 16, 17 pounds, is going to help him in any way, he's mistaken. So unless Wilder goes away for a year and remanufactured his body and comes back at 19 stone of muscle, not 16 and a half stone of muscle, he's never going to match Tyson Fury's power. I think, and I've had a disagreement with Lennox Lewis over that. Not a good man to have a disagreement with, Joe, by the way. So I made a mistake there, Rob. I said to Lennox, I think they're both 6 or 7 pounds too heavy. I thought they'd all be 6 or 7 pounds heavier, which they were, but then there was another 6 or 7 pounds. Yeah. I don't think it'll slow Tyson. It's the heaviest he's been since the fight back with Safari, the guy he fought when he was noticeably, you know, carrying weight, and it's the heaviest that Wilder's ever been. I just think they maybe should have been 5 or 6 pounds lighter. I don't think it affects Tyson, but it might just weigh on Wilder, unless of course he's weighed in with 6 pounds of gold chains in his pockets. Don't rule that out either.
Has he put pressure on himself as well to do his work in the early rounds? Because that extra weight, heaviest he's ever been in his career, that extra weight's that's gonna literally weigh on him in the later rounds, isn't it?
You'd imagine so. I mean, all the talk from Tyson's camp about how he's going to put it on him, you know. So obviously that would indicate the weight's going to, you know. I think as well, you know, from my limited knowledge, I just think Is he going to be heavier in the clinches? Is he leaning on him, trying to drain Wilder? Did Wilder feel that in the first fight when Tyson was grappling him, and that he still had the power to knock him down in the 12th round? But I mean, For me, I think the weight, I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue. I think they both come in heavier. I think it will go similar to the first fight, and I think Tyson will just be too sharp and too clever for him.
And one more thing on the weight. Talking to various people this week, David Hay and Lennox Lewis and Barry Jones, it's quite interesting how much weight they lose through a 12-round fight. Lennox was telling me he used to lose between 8 and 10 pounds and more if he came in a bit heavy. So that's something to bear in mind. So in theory, Tyson, if he were to go 12 rounds, would be down to somewhere near where he was for the first Wilder fight. And Wilder, were it to go 12 rounds, in theory would lose the same amount of weight. So maybe they're just storing it up. I mean, you know, I've ever told you a story about a camel. The way a camel does its business in the desert, okay, so I know a little bit about deserts. It's a quick one. Is it stores up when the going's good, when there's plenty to eat, because then when it goes out in the desert, there's nothing to eat. It eats on that stuff that it's been storing up, eats on the fat. Perhaps the heavyweights are using the same theory. It's a sensible theory. Sounded odd with the camels in the desert, but it makes sense, Joe.
Yes.
That's the insight we want from Joe there. Let's go for some predictions then, because Tyson's been saying second round all throughout his the campaign building up to this. Do you reckon it's going to be that? Do you reckon they're going to stand and bang, or do you reckon we're going to see almost exactly the same fight as last time?
I think almost exactly the same fight. I don't think... I'd be surprised if he does. It'll be exciting for as long as it lasts.
It'd be great.
But I can't see it. He done the job last time. He won the fight last time. Just do the same thing. I just think from a football perspective, if you know you've got a number against a team playing a certain way, you just do that until it don't work. And I just think, unless he's seen something, and he is a genius, ain't he? The way he fights, and for a big man to move like that. But I just think it'll be the same.
And a quick one from you, Bunce. No camel anecdotes, just a quick one.
Proper analysis from a professional athlete, and I completely agree 100% with Joe. I don't think it'll be a bang-up early. I'd love it to be. I think it's the same fight, but with a little bit more drama.
Okay, then, and you can follow all of that on BT Sports online platforms, as well as, obviously, on the night on BT Sport Box Office.